Welcome to the seventh session of Art and Science of Eating. Just a recap of whatever we discussed yesterday. Positive foods, herbs, roots, combs, bulbs. Later on in my next slide, I am going to show you some pictures of these roots, combs and bulbs for the people who do not understand these terminologies of botany. Fruits, vegetables, sprouted seeds and pulses, green leafy vegetables, all these come under positive foods. Which will maintain the blood's pH value slightly more than 7. Now, unprocessed grains, dried fruits, spices, fresh nuts, fresh milk and honey, all these have a pH value 7. And the processed grains, pasteurized milk, jaggery, sugar, dried nuts, white flour items, white means maida. Otherwise, people will think that white flour means rice flour is also white. No, not that way. In general, in English, white flour means it is maida. Fats or oils, sweets and savories, processed foods and beverages, all of these are going to reduce the pH value of the blood. So, the recommended diet for normally healthy people, ensure that in your regular lifestyle you have this much of 50%. Herbs, roots, combs, bulbs, fruits, vegetables, sprouted seeds and pulses, green leafy vegetables, 50%. If at all you are using all these, use them in a 25-25% ratio. That means it can be totally 50% of neutral and negative. My suggestion would be, as much as possible, reduce these negative foods. Most necessarily, you may have to use the dried nuts or the jaggery. And if at all you don't get a organic milk or a fresh milk, you may have to go for a pasteurized milk. But unprocessed grains are available, organic rice items are available, millets are available. You can completely forego with the processed grains as such. And fats and oils, to some extent, they are required. So let them be there in the diet. Sweets and savories, once in a while, we require for our celebration or at least for relishing the taste buds. As much as possible, avoid these processed foods and beverages. You can completely avoid the processed grains, processed foods and beverages, and these white flour items completely. Other things have a moderation in their usage. If that is the way, then your blood will remain clean and healthy. It will remain within the limits, alkaline, and you will not have serious sick conditions. Now, if there are people who are sick always allergic, or keep on getting sick due to different types of ailments, regularly getting fever or cough or cold or weakness, for such people, they will have to go for at least 80% positive, 20% neutral and negative. Now, the severely sick people, 100% positive. Yesterday, I gave an example of one great person called Basavananda Swami, who stays near Dharwad. Being born blind, his intellectual vision is much sharper than the normal people. He has healed so many people just by food therapy, just by 10 days of food therapy camp. For that matter, whether it is Jindal Naturopathy Ashram or whether it is Dharmastala's Naturopathy Ashram, what they do there is they will have a 10 days camp or a 21 days camp. And in these camps, they give maximum of positive foods only, maximum of cucumber, salads, and maximum of carrots or juices, fruit juices, and tender coconut. That way, when they keep on ingesting only positive foods into the body, after a period of continuous 10 days or 21 days, the blood gets completely detoxified and they again regain their healthy conditions. That is where this is recommended as for severely sick people, they should consume 100% positive food. Look at this picture. I was telling about roots, combs and bulbs. You can see all of them here. There are some carrots here. There are some radishes here. And there are some bulbs here and combs here. Generally all these are tubers. Potato is a tuber. And these are all again combs and bulbs. This is again bulb. So this is again a tuber, or sometimes rhizomes. Roots are carrot, radish, fennel, celery. Indians are fully familiar with carrot and radish. And otherwise also now even in the Indian market, fennels and celeries are available. If at all you have a nearby Namdhari's outlet in Bangalore, Namdhari regularly supplies very healthy food products. As much as possible, try to buy products from organic shops, even though it is slightly expensive. In the long run, you are investing on your health. So don't count much on your expenditure. In general, what I see is people spend a lot of money for unwanted things, whereas when it comes to regular health maintenance and food, they calculate a lot. That is when they lose valuable health also in future. So if at all you have Namdhari outlets or you have Lumiere outlets, this Lumiere generally supplies Kerala based organic items. Their matta rice is available, very good pickles. Recently I went there, I purchased a Punarnama pickle and mushroom pickle and what is the turmeric pickle. Very good food items are available in these Lumiere outlets. Again, don't think that they are giving commission for telling all these things to you. I'm just sharing my lifestyle and my experiences. Otherwise, people may think that he may be getting commission from Lumiere and Namdharis. That way, even Yasan Pandit, he is not giving me any commission. I have been making his Chavanaprasha famous since last 15 years among my student community. Okay. So, Lumiere, Namdharis. And if at all you are using cleaning agents at home, my advice would be go for one website called herbalstrategy.com. There, it is a completely Swadeshi, Kolar based company where they have a lot of cleaning liquids for the domestic purposes. They have a beautiful set of nearly 8 to 10 liquid products for bathroom, for toilet, for floor cleaning, for dish cleaning, like that. Buy Swadeshi, encourage Swadeshi products, encourage herbal products. So you can visit this herbalstrategy.com. Meanwhile, you can also visit one more small organization called mittca.com. That mittca.com is a team of like-minded people who started this venture almost 10 to 15 years before. They have very beautiful organic beauty products as well as healthcare products. You can try to use all these items. Initially, you may think that they are all expensive, but I will tell you, you are going to save your doctor's bills in future. Whatever bills people pay for doctors, for a general checkup, for a general treatment, that you are going to save a lot. So, it is a investment on your health, which is an investment for the future. So, coming back, carrot and radish Indians are familiar. You can buy fennel and celery also in Namdhari outlets. Next, corms, crocus, taro and gladiolus. Actually, Indians are familiar with this taro. In Kannada, we call it as Kesvinigedde. Colocasia leaves its root. That is having a very advantageous medicinal property. So, even Colocasia leaves are also having a healing property. I am going to show that picture later on. So, crocus, taro and gladiolus. In bulbs, it is daffodil, lily, tulip and onion, garlic, kohlrabi. Kohlrabi in Kannada, we call it as gedekosu. Or sometimes they say navilkosu or naukolu. Kohlrabi, cabbage, turnip. In tubers, we are already familiar with potato and beetroot and sweet potato and tapioca. Especially in Kerala state, they consume lot of tapioca products. That is how, in general, their stomach does not become upset. Sweet potato tapioca. Using tapioca also, they prepare sago. And then yam, in Kannada we call it as suvarnagedde, which is a very useful tuber. If this can be utilized in our regular food habit, at least monthly once, if you have a yam curry, your intestines scaling will gradually go away. If you have a colocasia leaves curry, at least monthly once, your intestine will remain clean. In my childhood, my grandparents, both my grandfather and grandmother, they were very wise people, and monthly once we used to have such food items which were available around us only in the forest somewhere. Some tubers, some leaves, my grandmother used to bring, and we used to have some curry out of it, and we used to consume it. And they used to say that it's a custom in the name of some festival or in the name of some god or some deity or some belief system, they used to consume this. Gradually, I understood that that was the wisdom of the ancients, that if people are told just like that to eat a tuber, they may not eat a tuber, but they have understood the value of consuming a tuber in a day to day life. So they used to say, in the name of deity or in the name of a festival, it is custom to consume. That is how our stomachs remained clean. So, rhizomes. You're already familiar with ginger, turmeric, asparagus. Asparagus is nothing but ashwagandha. And bamboo. Bamboo shoots, you are already familiar with them. These are all rhizomes. These two are below earth and these two are above earth. All these have medicinal properties. So, in our regular diet, we should be using all these food items which God created by Himself. All these food items are completely natural. There is no need of any further synthesis or processing. God directly produced them as edible things, and it is better that we understand God's intention, and it is better that we understand our own lifestyle to remain healthy. In this picture, you can see daffodil and lily, they are classified under true bulbs, and crocus and gladiolus, they are classified under corms. Potato and caladium, they are under tubers. Sweet potato and dahlia, they are under tuberous roots. Iris and canna, they are under rhizomes. This is a picture which Western health enthusiasts have developed. I should appreciate the Western people that they you use the resources to the maximum extent, where they collect a lot of information and they publish it for the welfare of the public. That is how I get all these pictures on the Google and I use them for this particular interaction. I am not seeing such resources being shared by the Indian community. Maybe Indians are busy in earning money and spending money and dying early. Maybe Indians are busy. For some time, they will keep on earning more and more money. For earning more and more money, they work more and more. And while they are working more and more for earning money, they gradually develop stress. And due to this physical as well as mental stress, they gradually develop all types of physical and psychological diseases. And finally, whatever money they have earned, they will end up spending the same money for their own treatment. This is a vicious cycle which most of the Indians are following now. That way, Western world has at least realized that earning money is not the whole and sole purpose of life. So that way, those people, if at all they study something very seriously, and they collect information also that way. Whereas Indians are much lazy that way in systematically storing this data for the welfare of the public. That is why you can see in all these pictures, I am specifically having only Western words. I don't have the similar pictures with Indian words. I searched a lot for that. I could not get it. The only very good resource, even today, I appreciate. Actually, yesterday I sent him a mail for thanks. There is one person called Dr. J.V. Hebar. He is a professor in Alvas Mudbitri College. He stays at Mangalore. You go to his particular website called easyayurveda.com. Very beautiful website with a lot of collection about health related tips. I have learnt a lot from him only through his websites. I have been interacting with him from last 15 years. In addition, I have been interacting with one great person in Bangalore called Dr. Girdhar Kaje. I used to go to him earlier for some casual talks or for casual visit. Later on, he used to write Kannada articles, and I used to read all those Kannada articles, and I have collected them. Through their articles, I learnt a lot, especially from J.V. Hebbar's easyayurveda.com. I have studied a lot about health and Ayurveda. So, these three people, one is Yogavana Swamiji, one is Dr. J.V. Hebbar, one is Dr. Girdhar Kaje. Through these three people, with their interaction, I have learnt a lot. So, in J.V. Hebbar's easyayurveda.com, you can find a lot of Indian health related topics. But the collection of all these items in the Indian names, I could not find it. Anyway, you are already familiar with the Indian tubers. If you go to any organic shops, you will find many types of edible tubers, edible corms, edible bulbs, and you can buy them and you can start using them in your regular food habits. If you have not used till now, my suggestion would be at least from now on, start using these God produced food products. Bulbs, corms, tubers, rhizomes. I have a comparison table here. I will not go into much detail about the botanical details. In general, I'll just read out structurally short stem with the fleshy leaves or leaf bases that function as food storage organs during dormancy, that is bulbs. Corms are rounded underground storage organs present in plants consisting of a swollen stem base covered with scale leaves. Tubers are much thickened underground part of a stem, and rhizomes are continuously growing horizontal underground stem which puts out lateral shoots and adventitious roots at intervals. Bulbs are modified leaves that store nutrients. Corms are swollen stem bases. Tubers are thick underground stems, and rhizomes are swollen stems. Bulbs have scales, which are the modified leaves. Corms have smooth modified stems. Tubers have fleshy roots, and rhizomes grow horizontally inside the soil. Bulbs have a basal plate. Even corms have a basal plate. The tubers do not have a basal plate, and even rhizomes do not have a basal plate. Bulbs produce an offspring. Corms produce an offspring, whereas tubers grow in size in every year, and rhizomes produce an offspring. Especially ginger, when they cultivate the ginger for years together, it simply keeps growing below the earth only. Its activity will be invisible at the top. And bulbs developed by daffodils, hyacinths, allium, anion, and tulips. Corms are developed by gladiolus, freesia, and crocus. And tubers are developed by potatoes. Rhizomes are developed by iris, lily of the valley, canna, and calla lily. These are all Western terms only. I don't have the equivalent Indian terms with me. Now, some more suggestions, some serious suggestions. Okay, somebody has asked me, could you send the organics names later? No, you note down. I'm not going to send anything because I am getting some criticisms about my style of this presentation. Some of you may like my style, some of you may not like my style, but it is not my job to make you like me. I will simply say you like yourself. You don't have to like me after the sessions are over. If you remember the suggestions, live happily. That's all, that is enough. So I cannot send you the organic store names later because somebody else may comment or criticize me that again he may be having a setup with the Namdharis and Lumières and all that. That's why now you note down. Now you note down Namdharis outlets and Lumiere outlets. Around you, you find out. Or else there are some areas in Bangalore where they even deliver the goods. In Whitefield they have, in Mahadevpura they have. So, Lumiere outlets, search for them. Lumiere and Namdharis. As far as this cleaning items are concerned, herbalstrategy.com, and then for beauty and healthcare products, mittica.com. So I have told you 4 names now. I think you note down that, and that is enough. Let me go on. No coffee, no tea, no soft drinks, no alcohol, no tobacco, no betel nut, no drugs. No coffee. I have told you coffee is a diuretic molecule. Coffee affects kidneys, tea affects liver. So, as much as possible, try to avoid coffee, tea only. I don't consume coffee and tea at home at all. At home, we consume only kashaya. But outside, I cannot have my own rules and conditions. Whenever we have meetings, I cannot say that I don't drink coffee, I don't drink tea that way. Otherwise, sometimes I'll not be part of the audience there. So unnecessarily there will be questions, and I'll have to keep on answering those questions. There will be discussions and debates. As I've been telling, majority is foolish, and my problem is to keep on dealing with this majority who are keeping on doing all types of other habits in their day-to-day lifestyle, and they will gradually assume that others are also like that. So in general, I don't argue. If at all in my college or when I go to somebody's house, if they offer coffee and tea, I will simply drink and come. because at home I don't consume coffee or tea at all. Soft drinks, all types of energy drinks, simply they have no energy as such. Don't go with the marketing gimmicks there. Don't go for any type of soft drinks, and don't consume alcohol at all. I have already told in detail about the negative effects of alcohol. Don't consume tobacco also. Don't consume betel nut. Don't consume drugs. Now, no biscuits, no chocolates, no bakery products, no frozen items. In general, all these items, except for chocolates, biscuits, bakery products, they are all mostly made through white flour by frying it. Okay, why don't you directly consume a wheat flour, or why don't you consume a roti as such? Why do you go for a product which is processed and it is added with the other additional preservatives and it is baked and its nutrients are almost evaporated? Only like a packet it is there, but its nutrient contents are mostly evaporated. Only fiber contents and some sugar will remain there. So don't go for those bakery products. Don't go for the frozen items as such. As much as possible, even if you buy frozen items, even if you keep it in the fridge, allow it to be thawed. Let it come to the room temperature. After that only you consume it. You can conduct this particular experiment. Uh, Take a thermometer and take your temperature, take the reading of your body's temperature, then you consume an ice cream, let us say a stomach full ice cream. You just consume, and after you consume an ice cream, after about 15 minutes, measure the body's temperature once again. You will be wondering that the temperature of the body has increased in spite of you consuming ice cream. You consume ice cream for the purpose of cooling the body, but it is happening in a reverse way and the body's temperature increases. You can try it out and find out. The reason is when a heavy cold material goes into the stomach, automatically subconsciously body feels some threat that body is freezing, and suddenly circulation towards the belly will increase. Circulation towards the stomach will increase, and purposefully brain will give an instruction to increase the metabolic rate. Heart will slightly increase its pumping rate, and you will have more temperature. That is because it is counteracting with the heavily cold food which you consumed. So don't think that ice cream is for cooling the body. Ice cream will be gradually warming up the body. The very purpose for which you consume the ice cream, it will be reversed there. So take my suggestion. Once in a while if you consume ice cream, it is fine, but not on a regular basis. No meat, I have told already. No meat, no eggs, I have told already. No maida flour, I have told already. No sugar, no salt, I have told already. I am going to give you all the substitution for all these things. No green chilies. Don't consume green chilies as much as possible. Don't buy green chilies at all. If you want to buy chilies, buy red chilies. Don't use green chilies. Common sense has become so uncommon. When God made some items, if you put it on the mouth, if you feel unpleasant, which simply means that it is not meant to be consumed. So green chilies, when you put them on the mouth, you feel hot, it means that it should not be consumed. Still people make a mention kai bonda and they put it into the mouth and they swallow. Just think about on the mouth, if it creates that much of hotness, once it goes into the stomach, you have already seen the picture of the stomach. Once it goes into the stomach, what may be the status of affairs inside the stomach? Be careful. Don't bring green chilies at all. Don't use green chilies at all in your cooking. When the same green chilies become slightly ripe and when they become red chilies, their hot nature will be slightly reduced. Or a mango, when it is unripe, you will not be able to taste it fully. So it indicates that you should not consume that unripe mango. The same mango, when it becomes ripe, it becomes sweet and then you can consume. That is how God's law is working with these vegetables and fruits. Please understand that whichever is unpleasant to the tongue, don't forcibly consume it. But I have been seeing people using green chilies regularly in their diet, and there will be a uri in the mouth. Next day morning, there will be a uri at the rectum, and they only cause their uri. Mouth became hot, and next day the rectum became hot. Whole day in the office, they may be dancing because of this uri, because of this hot. And imagine from the mouth till the rectum, if this hot temper is going, In between also, how much hot it would be. Just imagine that way. Your nature depends on the food you eat. If you want to become a sattva guna person, if you want to become a virtuous person, then the food gradually induces such qualities in your body. People who are inclined to spirituality, please read the Bhagavad Gita, where there is a Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga, Shraddhatraya Vibhaga Yoga. There it is told Sattva Guna food, Rajo Guna good food, Tamo Guna food. Okay. So don't buy green chilies, don't use green chilies. Don't practice yogasana. If you are practicing yogasana or physical exercise, don't do it immediately after waking up. I'll tell you a small example. I'll not tell more details, but it is a real example where one person, he had a lunch. After the lunch, he went to the gym, and immediately after the lunch, he went to the gym and did some rigorous exercises. Within the next half an hour, he collapsed. Immediately, they took him in the ambulance, and on the way, he died. He did not understand his own body. He had a heavy lunch in the afternoon, then he immediately went to gym and did a lot of physical exercises. Actually, blood was rushing towards the belly there because of the heavy lunch. Now he started working out heavily, body got heavily confused, and body went into an emergency mode and he fainted. And the body could not sustain that much of energy loss as soon as the lunch was over, and the body gave up and he died. It takes a lifetime to understand your own body. That is why don't do any physical exercise immediately after waking up. Give at least half an hour to 1 hour time. Your body should understand that physical activity is happening, and gradually body should adapt for the movement. So, and don't drink plenty of water during meals. This I had told already in the beginning. So all these are no, no, no. Now what is yes? Yes is, instead of coffee, tea, soft drinks, herbal tea, kashaya, fruit juices, instead of betel nut, betel leaf. Betel leaf is very good. Betel leaf is having a slightly hot taste and slightly astringent taste. That means betel leaf is very useful to the health. And herbal tea and kashaya, later on I am going to tell you in detail about it. Fruit juices you already know. Instead of biscuits, chocolates and bakery products, prepare fruit salads and vegetable salads at home. And instead of all these frozen items, buy these fruit cakes which are available in the same bakery or in some other food joint. You can buy fruit cakes, but ensure only buy eggless cakes. I have told you already about the physiology of eggs. Don't go for the cake which is using the egg. Go for fruit cakes which are basically eggless. And go for a multigrain flour. Instead of this maida flour, go for a multigrain flour. And instead of sugar, go for jaggery. Rock sugar is available, rock salt is available. If at all you are practicing yogasana or any physical exercise, practice yogasana after at least 30 minutes of waking. And this thing I have told again and again, food should be 50% solid, 25% liquid, leave 25% space. Reduce what all? Dried green peas, reduce. Vana batani, dried green peas, reduce. Dried long beans, reduce. Vanagiro alasande kalu, reduce. Dried kidney beans, vanagiro rajma kalu, reduce. These are all, once they go into the stomach, due to the digestive reactions, all these beans, they emit gases. In general, inside the intestine, those gases are toxic gases. So all these are not recommended for a regular use, but you need not stop them because they have protein also. So reduce these. Reduce potato. Now this samosa, I used to tell in the college all with the students that samosa, sa means with in Sanskrit, mosa means cheating in Kannada. So samosa means, it's a Kannada plus Sanskrit word in such a way, even though it is a Hindi word, in Sanskrit and Kannada meaning if we take, it is with cheating, which means it has a potato inside, then it has a white flour covering outside, and it is fried in oil and with the sauce, chili sauce, tomato sauce. Once you consume this samosa, it is going to produce a lot of toxic gases inside your intestine, and its effect will be known next day morning. Or whoever consumes regular samosa kachori, around him his friends will be knowing whatever he has consumed. Okay, so as much as possible, reduce the consumption of potato as such. If it is simply boiled and consumed, it's a very good tuber. In fact, in the Himalayan region, so many people consume these tubers in a regular basis. They have potato fields there. But in the cities, the civilized people, what they do is they process potato with a lot of seasoning and with a lot of chilies and all other things. And that is when the potato starchy content also gets affected. Field or flat beans, avrekadu. Kannadigas are very famous in consuming avrekadu. Once the avrekadu season happens, avrekadu uppittu, avrekadu chitranna, avrekadu palya, avrekadu saru, avrekadu bisabalatu, everything is avrekadu. But that is also very friendly gas producing beans. But if you consume avrekadu, you will never be able to forget the taste of it. That way it is highly tasty. But the problem is, it is going to produce lot of gases inside the intestine. Similarly, pumpkin, brinjal. Yesterday somebody asked me about brinjal. Pumpkin, brinjal, and onion, reduce it. Don't stop onion. Onion has got a very good property of blood purification. But if you keep consuming more onion, onion is hot in its taste. Black gram. Black gram, it is present in the idli, it is present in the dosa, but black gram should not be consumed for a larger amount. In general, some sects, they don't consume onion at all, and in some sects, black gram and some other such items, they shun it. It is told in the Ayurvedic text that more and more consumption of black gram is going to increase the sexual potency and the sexual desires. That is why, in general, it is advised not to use a lot of black gram. But when black gram, when it is used in with the rice, when it is fermented, when it is consumed in a idli, its potency is slightly lost. In general, we don't consume the black gram items directly. Just like we use a green gram curry, we don't make a black gram curry. That was the wisdom which Ayurveda told us. This you can observe there. Nobody consumes the black gram curry as such. They use it only for making idli dosa. Directly they do not consume it. It is not so pleasant to consume that also. So try to reduce its direct consumption and reduce the sweet and oily items, reduce the cheese I have told, reduce the fried fruits, reduce the polished rice, all this I have already told, reduce the processed or cold food items and beverages. Increase, see this paragraph is much bigger than the previous paragraph. Increase carrots, fresh green peas instead of the dried green peas. Radish, ash gourd, bitter gourd, bodgumbalkai, hagalkai, snake gourd, padavalakai, ridge gourd, sponge gourd, hirekai, sorekai, bottle gourd, tuppud sorekai, kohlrabi, tindora, tondekai, lady's finger, bendekai. In beans, broad beans, cluster beans, runner beans. Broad beans, chappardavarkai, cluster beans, gorikai. Runner beans itself is, they call it as ullikai. All green leafy vegetables such as agati. Agati means agase soppu. Agati, amaranthus, andre dantin soppu. Coriander, kottambari soppu. Dil, sabbasge soppu. Drumstick, nugge soppu. Fenugreek, mente soppu. Malabar spinach, basale soppu. Mint, pudina soppu. Use all these leafy vegetables in your regular diet. All types of edible fruits, roots, combs and bulbs, sprouted pulses, organic rice, brown rice. Coming to millets. Gret millet is called jola in Kannada or jovar in Hindi. Finger millet is called ragi in Kannada. Pole millet is called sajje. Kodo millet is called haraka. Little millet is called same. Barnyard millet is called udalu. Proso millet is called baragu. Foxtail millet is called navane. Brown top millet is called korle. The speciality of millets, in my next slide I am going to show this. The specialty of millets is that they don't use insecticides and pesticides doing growing these millets. The reason is these millets do not require the stoppage of water in the fields. If they have to grow rice, the whole field should be having enough water. The same water goes into the stem of the paddy plant. That is how they grow rice. That is when the rice field will have a lot of insects and lot of frogs and lot of earthworms, lot of decayed material also. So in general, to get away with all those insects and pests, they use insecticides and pesticides while they grow rice. In general, when this green revolution started, even agriculture was commercialized and they want to grow more crops in a lesser time and they want to make more profit out of it. That is when even the government started telling farmers to use these insecticides and pesticides lavishly. They use it. I should tell you a very sad story which happened in Kanjanga district in Kerala. There is a village called Swarga. Swarga meaning is heaven. The village was called as Swarga. Now what this Kerala government did was, there were a lot of cashew nut trees in that village. So to just increase the crop of the cashew nut, through a helicopter, they sprayed endosulfan on that particular cashew nut crop. Whole village was toxified with the spray of this endosulfan and they made Swarga as Naraka. Such a beautiful village, its name was Swarga. Now it is like a hell where people are suffering due to many diseases because of this senseless spraying of the endosulfan. That is how sometimes even the governance takes stupid decisions without bothering about the people's lives. They want only commercialization, crop, and more of income. So in such cases, when they use a lot of pesticides and insecticides while growing rice, that's why I keep on insisting on organic rice, where they don't spray pesticides and insecticides. Even if the yield is coming less, it does not matter for them. That is why organic rice varieties are slightly expensive, because they don't get much profit out of it. There is one particular variety of rice which is grown in the Gurur district, that is called Rajamudi rice. There they completely use regular local cow dung manure only, and they don't spray insecticides and pesticides. The yield of rice is lesser because of that. Still, the rice is tasty and healthy. Now, in millets, they don't use insecticides and pesticides at all, because these millets are grown in dry areas where the water is not in a stagnant condition. Water is not even flowing there. They are all grown in dry areas. There is no need of spraying insecticides and pesticides. So, due to this reason, they will have lesser toxic content there. Yesterday I told, whoever invented Jodad Roti is a genius. Whoever invented Ragi Mudde is a genius. Similarly, in fact, in my lifestyle, I have a pearl millet bottle. In one bottle, I store half kg of pearl millet. And I used to bring all these Kodo millet and Little millet and Barnyard millet, Proso millet and Foxtail millet also. But through Foxtail millet, only bisabadabat is possible or khichdi type is possible, but porridge is not possible. All other things you can use it as porridge only. Now I have reduced the content of this Barnyard, Proso and Brown Top, because they are all similar in their taste even when they are porridge. But I regularly consume this Sajje Ganji, pearl millet, even Jola Ganji and Ragi Mudde. Apart from that, these are all Indian millets. We have Himalayan Amaranth and we have Australian oats. We have buckwheat, very good food grain, buckwheat. If you have access to any such stores, buy buckwheat, make an upma out of it and taste it, and then you will appreciate me. It's a very nutritious and very tasty grain, buckwheat. Even quinoa. Quinoa is more expensive than any of all these things. But quinoa is also heavily healthy. But quinoa does not grow towards this side. In the eastern side, they don't grow, only in the western side. So when it comes to the eastern side, it is more expensive. But for experiment purpose, at least once you buy quinoa and taste it and find out. Buckwheat, if it is available nearby, keep on consuming this particular buckwheat and you will wonder at God's creation about what all types of food grains he created for the welfare of his children, supposed to be his children. All red, orange, and yellow fruits and vegetables and dark green leafy vegetables are rich in beta carotene and antioxidants and are helpful for optimum liver and gallbladder health. Indian millets, look at this: pearl millet, sorghum, proso millet, little millet, finger millet, kodo millet, black rice, they also call it as Burma rice, foxtail millet, barnyard millet, even it is called as Burma rice. Indian farmers also grow this rice. Near Madvalli, I suddenly don't recall the name of the village. There is one Muslim farmer. Now I don't recall his name also correctly, but I have visited him. You can search for his activities near Madvalli. And he has a organic farm there where he cultivates nearly 250 varieties of rice. I had gone to visit him. Systematically he grows such rice varieties. Complete all rice varieties are organic varieties only. He supplies all his crop to one organization in Bangalore called Sahaja Samradha. They are the people who are marketing his products. They have signed a contract with him. All his producers he gives to them only. But he beautifully grows all those rice varieties. When I went there, he was showing me his field, and in one particular rice plant, when we were crossing that particular lane, we were getting a jasmine smell, and I was observing around me. There were no jasmine plants anywhere, and I was sniffing and wondering. He understood my body language, and he told me, "Yen sir, malige vasne tagonta idira?" He asked me, "Are you smelling jasmine flower?" I asked him, "Ellide ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಿಲ್ವಲ್ಲ? Where is it? I am not able to find." Then he says, "Sir, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮುಂದ್ಗಡೆ ಭತ್ತದ ಇದೆ ನೋಡಿ, ಅದು jasmine rice, Thai jasmine rice." He told that the rice plant which is in front of us is a Thai jasmine rice plant, and its leaf smells like jasmine. It was such a wonderful experience for me. And we were traveling all the way. There was one moving around all the way. Don't find out my grammatical mistakes now. I am basically a Kannada medium guy. Okay. So, again, my critics will keep on telling me he does not know how to speak proper English also. It is up to you. I wash my body with the Kaveri river. You may wash your body with the Thames river or Mississippi river. Then I don't blame you. You don't blame me. So, when we were moving around in that field, in one particular rice plant, once honeybee was slowly moving from bottom to top. It was going through each and every rice flower. It was going through that. It was slowly moving. I asked this person, unfortunately I don't recall his name now, otherwise he is a very nice gentleman. I asked this person, "What is this honeybee doing?" Then he told, "Sir, jennona illa andre prapanchana illa, sir." He told, "If honeybee is not there, we are not there. This earth is not at all there, sir. ಜೇನ್ನಣ ನಮ್ಮ ಗದ್ದೆಗೆ ಬಂದ್ರೇನೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಊಟ ಸರ್. If this honeybee comes to my field, then only it will pollinate the flowers and rice will be yielding, sir." He told. And he told what is it doing. He told it is going to drink the nectar and it is going to store the nectar in its mouth. Then it is going to carry the pollen with these legs and it will fly away there. It will store that pollen and the nectar in the mouth into its honeycomb. It will come back again and it will come to the plant and do this activity whole day, at least till noon. And he says, "This is our best friend which keeps on coming daily to my field." Then I remembered whatever Einstein told. Einstein had told that the day when honeybee becomes extinct on this earth, within the next 4 years, the complete earth becomes extinct. Einstein had warned the day when honeybee becomes extinct, it is basically a pollinating agent which God created. And if honeybee becomes extinct within the next 4 years, pollination of the flowers will not happen and no one will survive. Now the meat eater may say, "Sir, we will keep eating meat." For eating meat, where will be meat there for you? Even the meat which you eat, all those animals also will not survive because there will be No pollination, no vegetables grown, no fruits grown, nothing will happen. Such a small insect which God created, it has a great purpose for the sustenance of life. So if people say that, Arvinda sir, from where you learn all those things, then I say I keep learning everything through my life's experience by interacting with such people. I'll tell you a small story now. There was a person who was selling idlis, and he used to painstakingly get up in the early morning, and he used to bake nearly 500 idlis per day, and he used to have very good client network. Customers used to come to his shop early morning 7 o'clock itself. He used to have a very good business. Gradually, through his money, he sent his son to school and then to college. His son completed MBA in finance. His son became double graduate in finance management. And afterwards, the son came back home. Daily, he used to read Economic Times, and daily, he used to read a lot of newspapers. And he kept on telling to father that, Daddy, economy is down, economy is crashing, there is ups and downs in the market, there is always a recession there. He kept on telling. The father never used to understand anything. The father used to say, is it so? Is it so? Oh, is it so? And father used to appreciate that my son has become very wise and very intelligent. And father used to say around the village that my son who has completed his double graduation in finance management, he knows a lot. This used to go on for a few days. After a few days, one day the son asked the father, Daddy, for in a day, how many idlis do you prepare? Now, father said, about 500 idlis I prepare. Then son said, Daddy, be careful, market is low, and let us say you prepare 500 idlis batter. If the customers do not come, what will you do? Then father said, for years together I have been doing this, my dear, and I have my customers, my villagers keep coming to me. I give them quality product and they keep on using it. Now son said, Daddy, we should forecast the future. We should be able to face the risk. If at all tomorrow morning, if let us say 500 people do not come, what will happen to your batter? Father said, till now such thing never happened. It may not happen. Now son said, you don't know. I am a double graduate in MBA and I am a double graduate in financial management. I know the market risks. You don't know. Then father said, what to do, my dear? Then son said, tomorrow morning, you don't wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and 7 o'clock so early you don't start. Anyhow, very early people will not come. So don't prepare for 500 idlis. Prepare for, let us say, only 300 idlis. You have to be careful about the market. It's high and low. Father thought, my son is a very intelligent fellow. Whatever he says, let me follow. So next day morning by 7 o'clock, the father did not open his shop. He thought, after about 1 hour, I'll open the shop. I'll have less batter and less idli. People who came at 7 o'clock there, they were waiting for the shop to be opened. They did not find the person to open, and they went back. And he opened the shop at 8 o'clock. He prepared only around 250, 300 idlis. And this went on. Gradually, people came to know this fellow is not opening the shop at 7 o'clock. And gradually, those early customers, they changed their place of purchase. They went for some other alternatives. And only less number of people used to come who used to come after 8 o'clock. Now, after about 2 weeks, son asked the father, Daddy, how is the market now? Then father said, whatever you told is right, my son. What happened was market has collapsed. Now I have only 200 to 300 people only coming to my shop. Now son said, look daddy, whatever I told is correct now. You should be careful about taking risks. Okay. Then again, after about 2 weeks, the son told to father, Daddy, now 250, 300 people are coming. Other people have taken for their different alternatives. What will happen if these people also will stop coming to your shop? What will you do? Father said, they are all coming to my shop, my dear son. And again, this fellow said, don't believe on the people's psychology, daddy. We don't know. People may change their options. And maybe next month they may not come at all. You start producing less number of idlis only now. Instead of 250, 300, only produce 100 idlis now. And this fellow used to open the shop by 9 o'clock now. Instead of 8 o'clock, he started at 9 o'clock. He used to produce only 100 idlis. And after about 3 months, people stopped coming to him. People kept on talking that that old man, he is not committed, he is not committed anymore now. He does not take care of his business. He is so careless now. Whenever we go there, the shop remains closed, and people stopped coming. Ultimately, one day, father closed his shop because of loss. Once father closed his shop, son told, look, whatever happened, market is very low, there's a recession, and you have to close your shop. Whatever suggestion I gave you, it worked out, otherwise you would be having heavy loss. Father believed it. What is the moral of the story? The modern so-called intellectual double graduates or triple graduates, do they have wisdom, or are they depending only on the data? Do they have wisdom, or they want more and more of numbers? Through numbers only they suggest, through numbers only they learn. This is the problem with this modern education. Okay, so I learnt a lot with the very simple people. Whomever I interacted with, the farmer I told, who is having an organic farm, that village, name of the village is called Kirugavalu. I recalled it now. Near Madavalli, there is a small village called Kirugavalu. If at all you search Kirugavalu, or if at all you go there, you will find that particular Muslim farmer. Even now I don't recall his name. If at all I recall his name, I will tell you, but you can find out. He is a very nice gentleman. He knows much about agriculture than even the double graduate people who have double degrees in agriculture, maybe BSc agriculture or MSc agriculture or whatever. So the moral of the story is, we learn by experience only, we learn by such interaction only. We don't learn only by books, or we don't learn only by statistics, or we don't learn only by proofs. As such, the modern technology or the modern methodology or the modern research is lot of collection of data. But my point is, if at all tamarind is sour, do you need data to prove that tamarind is sour? If I taste tamarind, if I tell you that tamarind is sour, if you have faith in me, you will know that tamarind is sour. If let us say I put my hand in fire, and if let us say I have experience of the fire burning, and if I tell you that fire burns, if you have faith in me, you should understand. Otherwise, you should also touch fire, you should experience. You should also taste tamarind, you should understand. Is experience not enough? Is proof required in terms of data to everybody? I don't know where this world is leading to, where people believe in numbers only. People don't believe in the real life's experiences. So my point here is, I did not believe in numbers. I mixed myself with all these people whom I consider to be very wise than the highly educated people also. That way my grandmother was a walking encyclopedia. She knew so many things. She was a domestic gynecologist. We were all born not in nursing homes. We were all born in our own homes. And when my mother was having a labor pain, my grandmother helped her to deliver me. My grandmother was a great domestic gynecologist. She was a great herbal therapist. She knew all the herbs, medicinal properties around our house. She knew the psychology of the cattle, and she knew the seasons, and she knew the plants. She knew even financial management. She knew cooking very well. She was a very much expert in preparing different types of pickles. But my grandmother studied only second standard. She knew only to put her signature, nothing else. She was never having a reading skill for a newspaper also. But she was a walking encyclopedia. When I lived with my grandmother, I learnt a lot about life only with her. So, people should believe some other people who have experience of life. Otherwise, some of my audience may say that I am only a teaching faculty in an engineering college, and I keep teaching yoga. How can I talk about food and health with this much length? Life is multidimensional. Knowledge is also multidimensional. If you want to learn, somehow you will learn. There is something called law of psychic attraction. Law of psychic attraction says that you will attract only such situations in your life what you are willing to have. So my purpose in life was to understand life and death in its reality, and God has helped me a lot in gaining all this knowledge. That is what I am sharing with you, nothing else. So it is better that people stop judging me and people only listen to me attentively and grasp how much ever possible and implement in life so as to have a healthy life. That is the only intention here, nothing else. So today I have told you the story. This is my 11th story and I am noting down MBA graduate and his father. Okay. Ghani Khan, yeah. My student Pratap reminded me that farmer's name is Ghani Khan. Remember, he is a good gentleman. If at all I get his phone number, maybe later on I will share that number with you. You must meet such people. It is not only Ghani Khan. There are so many such other farmers. Near T. Narsipura, there is one more farmer. He is a BSc graduate, but he is into rice farming, completely organic farming. That way, there are many people who are nature lovers and they are health lovers also. Okay, let me proceed further. I am talking about these Indian millets. This is the picture of a brown top millet because that was missing here in this picture. Brown top millet. This is the picture of the plant and this is the picture of the grain. As such, you can see these plants don't require a lot of water for their survival. They will be grown even in dry areas. That is why the usage of pesticides and insecticides is not required. Nutrient content of millets, you can see. I'll go faster now because I don't have to go through all these figures. But you just look at this pearl millet, finger millet, foxtail millet, proso millet, kodo millet, little millet, barnyard millet, and rice and wheat. This data I have collected from the horticulture department only. Otherwise, someone else may question me from where you got it. Somebody wanted that in each of my slides I should mention the source and I should have a bibliography. But my point is, I am not presenting my PhD thesis here. I am only helping some of my friends and some of my old students or the regular students to have a healthy lifestyle. If they have faith in my words, that is enough. I don't have to put every slide, I don't have to bibliography or reference and courtesy and all those things. I have courtesy on mainly these three people whom I have told: Yogavana Swamiji, Dr. Girdhar Kaje, and Dr. J.V. Hebbar. EasyAyurveda.com, J.V. Hebbar. Prashanti Ayurvedic Center in Bangalore, Dr. Girdhar Kaje. And Yogavana Swamiji, with whom I had nearly 2 years of very useful interaction. So this data I have collected from the horticulture department of Bangalore only. Bangalore, Hebbar only. You can see protein content here. You can see fiber content, minerals content, iron content, calcium content. People are worried about these micronutrients and these macronutrients. But you can see all of that here. Pearl millet contains 16.9 milligrams of iron and finger millet contains 344 milligrams of calcium. Ragi mudde contains 344 milligrams of calcium. Ragi mudde, ragi rotti. Anyhow, I am going to share this video with you. Later on, once the sessions are over, I am going to send this PowerPoint also to you. You can refer to this again in your spare time. But look at this rice. Rice contains only 6.8 grams of protein, whereas wheat contains 11.8 grams of protein. And pearl millet contains 10.6 grams of protein. Foxtail millet and proso millet contain 12.3, 12.5 grams of protein. Wheat also contains one more protein called gluten, and gluten will not get easily digested with many people as such. Whereas the same amount of protein is there in finger millet also, foxtail millet also, proso millet also. These will get digested very easily. Look at the fiber, look at the mineral content, look at the iron content, and look at the calcium content. This is called great millet, sorghum, jola, finger millet, ragi, spiked millet, pearl millet, sajje, then kodo millet, little millet, barnyard millet, same, udalu, baragu, common millet, proso millet, Italian millet, foxtail millet, navani. These are all the pictures of different types of millets which are grown in India. Delicious. Ragi mudde, ಸಾರು, ರಾಗಿ ರೊಟ್ಟಿ, ಅವರೆಕಾಳು ಚಟ್ನಿ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ನವಣೆದು ಬಿಸಿಬೇಳೆ ಬಾತು, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಜೋಳದ ರೊಟ್ಟಿ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಚಟ್ನಿ, ಪುಂಡಿ ಪಲ್ಯ. Is your mouth not producing saliva? If your mouth is right now producing saliva, that means you are right now naturally thinking and you are with me. By looking at this, if your mouth produces saliva, means you are coming back to nature right now. That is the indication, that is the proof for yourself. These are very healthy foods, and that is how our elders used to remain very healthy. They never used to go to any nursing homes for regular master health checkup. They never used to have regular heartbeat checkup or pulse rate or blood checkup. They never went because they were having all these healthy food. Okay, I was thinking about this, in what way people suffer. And I have an analogy which is reality also. Analogy is that economically poor people suffer from some type of diseases, middle class people suffer from some type of diseases, and economically upper class people suffer from some types of diseases. If I am wrong, you tell me, but this is my observation. Economically poor people live in very unhygienic conditions, and they keep on suffering due to infections. Always fever, always cold, and water contamination, food contamination, staying in dirty areas, and generally they will have infection related diseases. Middle class people will have, in general, they will have some diabetes, they will have in general sometimes of blood pressure, sometimes thyroid issue, a little bit of kidney issue, and something like that. That is middle class people. Economically upper class people will have a very high level diseases like kidney transplantation, heart transplantation, liver transplantation. If I am wrong, you correct me. The economically poor people will not get very high level diseases where they have to spend lakhs together. They will have infection related diseases. The economically very rich people have high level of arrogance where they misuse their body by all types of consumptions, lack of exercise, all types of food consumption, and they spoil their digestive system, spoil their circulatory system. And one fine day doctor will say, you pay the money, I will replace anything and everything. Liver transplantation, kidney transplantation. Now these middle class people are neither this side nor that side. They are angry on both sides. And that is why they have strange types of blood pressures and diabetes related issues, all these things. Just compare your own grandfathers or their own fathers. In their lifetime, how many pills did they consume, and how many times did they go to doctors, and how many checkups they had? You will wonder. The way in which in the modern generation people go to hospitals and labs and they check their body checked, get their body checked, and they will have all those beautifully printed papers in front of them, and sometimes they become happy seeing all those statistical data, and they will say, nange sugar ide, nange bp ide, I have diabetes, I have blood pressure. For telling that, they become happy. What to tell to such nonsense attitude? So again, curse me if you want to curse me, but it will never affect me. If you look at this picture and if you get saliva in your mouth, which means that my teaching has made an effect on you, impact on you, and you are coming back to natural state. Now looking at this picture, if your salivary glands are not secreting saliva, and if you are not feeling of consuming these, then it means that my 7th session today till now, it did not make any impact on you. Maybe the next 3 sessions also may not make any impact on you. You may be as good as an animal only. I appreciate if you think like a human being. At least now, after about 6 sessions are over, right now it is the 7th session, you understand all the basic principles of human bodies working and the importance of the food. That is when again I justify the title of this as Art and Science of Eating. I have told you all the science of eating till now. The art you only are going to develop. It is your own personal art to maintain your body. If you understand the science, gradually you will have your own artistic ability. I cannot spoon feed everybody about how to live day in and day out. You have to develop your own methodologies to live in a healthy way. Don't bring commerce here. Have an art of eating, have a science of eating, understand the science of eating, develop an art of living. Don't bring commerce into the regular eating process. You may lose the science also, you may use the art also later on. to silent workers. Now from now on I will go again back into the human physiology and anatomy. Let me take a small break to drink water. Let me talk about kidney. At the back of you there are these two kidneys, behind the liver and behind the spleen approximately. This is your back. At the back there will be two kidneys, and these two kidneys will have this ureter tube, and then you have a bladder, and these two kidneys will continuously take away water from the blood. See this side. Other side of the kidney is the bloodstream, and from the bloodstream this side the kidney is going to take away water. This is that ureter, and that water is coming down here. Water is coming down here, it gets stored in the bladder. Once the bladder becomes about half or three-fourth full, signal goes to the brain, and the brain tells you about the urge of urination. That is when you feel like you have to go to bathroom and urinate. So this is happening on a daily basis now. You will feel about the sensation of urination once it becomes about three-fourth. You should not postpone that particular urge. I'll tell you one more example. When I was studying BE, I was staying in Tumkur, near that highway, Tumkur-Shimoga highway. My room was on the first floor. One day afternoon, my one friend, he was a classmate in civil branch. He suddenly came and started banging my door. There was a steps there. I have to go down and open the door for him to come up. So I went there, opened the door. He immediately rushed up and ran to the bathroom. In the bathroom, he was there nearly for about 5 minutes. Then he came out from the bathroom. His name was Shashi. And I asked him, why such a hurry? Then he said, I was having this urge of urination and I could not hold it until I go home. His home was at Katsandra. And I asked him from where you came. He said, I came from Maruti Takis, where I had gone to a movie. From the movie theater, he had come all the way nearly 3 kilometers. Again, another 2 kilometers he has to go to his house. In between, he remembered that my room is there. He suddenly came there and he had this urination. Then I told him, why you did not go for urination in the movie theater itself? Then he said, for the next show, people were waiting there, so I did not go there. Then I asked him, did you have that urge of urination there? He said, I had that urge, but I thought until I go home, I will sustain it. Then I told him, next time, don't do this. Next time, whenever you have an urge of urination, don't do this. Because internally bladder gets filled. Once the bladder gets filled, signal goes to brain and kidneys will keep on pumping water down. Kidneys will not be knowing whether the bladder is full or not, because signal will not go this way. Signal will go to the brain. So kidneys, they have to keep on removing excessive water from the blood. So if the bladder becomes full, and if that habit of holding the urge of urination keeps on happening, someday bladder will have a weakened existence. Moreover, if the salt intake is more, the water which is coming out will have more and more of salt, and if the salt gets accumulated in the bladder, someday you will have a serious bladder related health issue. So my suggestion, if you have an urge of urination, Don't think of this mana and maryade. Don't think of what others will think, what they will think. If I go in the middle, what will happen? Don't think about that. Because your body does not have any mana maryada. Only you have that mana maryada. That hiding or that barrier, it's a mental barrier. None of the birds and animals, when they have the urge of excretion or urination, they don't stop it. You can observe any animals and birds. When they have an urge of urination or when they have an urge of excretion, they are not bothered about what others are thinking about them. We, being civilized and educated human beings, we think what others are thinking about us. But internally, the organs will have more and more of stress that way. So, whenever you have an urge of urination, don't hold it as early as possible, empty it. Coming back here, if it keeps taking away water, look at this, there is a kidney stone. This kidney is like a sponge tissue and it keeps on taking water this way. There is some type of osmotic process or diffusion process. Blood cells remain that side, only water comes this side. Very beautiful filter. God made filter. On the other side of the kidney, there is a blood flow. On this side of the kidney, only the water comes out along with the dissolved salts. That's why I have been telling you, you have to reduce the intake of salt as such, because more salt means it will be taken away by the kidneys and it will go into the bladder, it will go into the urethra, it will go away. I had told you one particular Ayurvedic medicine called Makaradhwaja, which is a famous medicine for treating the urinary tract infection itself. Makaradhwaja is utilized to keep the clean kidneys, clean bladder, clean urethra. But you don't take Makaradhwaja on your own. You will have to consult an Ayurvedic expert or a doctor for using such Ayurvedic medicines. Just because I am telling you, don't try any of those things. I am not telling you to consume that medicine. I am telling you the beauty of Ayurveda, where they have identified 5000 years before itself that which all medicines can heal the body internally. So if people say that Ayurveda has it undergone research, Ayurveda does it have a data, then I will say that 5000 years of existence of a system itself is the proof. That is enough. Ayurveda, experiential proof. It does not require a statistical proof. One day, one of my students only told me that some of his friends told him that Ayurveda is not undergoing any research. I asked the same question with Yogavana Swami. Then Yogavana Swami heavily laughed and Swamiji told me, why Ayurveda requires a research data? Why Ayurveda requires a proof? And the thing that it is working itself is the proof. There is one tablet in Ayurveda called Virechana Gutika. All of my yoga students know about it. Now they are all laughing because they know next 5 minutes what I am going to talk. My yoga students already know that what I am going to talk. There is a small pill called Virechana Gutika. In Kannada we call it as Bhedi Matre. That small pill, early morning when you consume, you keep on drinking water for whole day, that small pill will drain you out. And it will make you go to toilet for multiple number of times on the whole day, and complete your colon will be cleansed, intestine will be cleansed. Now who says that Ayurveda is slow? Anybody who consumes this Bhedi Matre or Virechana Gutika, they know that how fast it works, how strong it works. People say Ayurveda is slow. People who say Ayurveda is slow, they should try this pill. they will come to know how fast this pill works. Okay. So, that way, in Ayurveda, the experience itself is the proof. There is no need of any other proof. So, you don't take Ayurvedic medicines just like that on your own. You will have to always consult an Ayurveda expert. I am not an Ayurveda doctor. I only have a knowledge of Ayurveda, but I cannot give prescriptions about Ayurvedic medicines. I am only giving you health tips, that's all. Okay. Now coming back, this kidney, a beautiful God-made filter, day in and day out, without any rest. These two people, two silent workers, neither the kidney nor the liver, they don't take rest at all. I am going to talk about liver slightly later on. they don't take rest at all, because water balance has to be maintained in the body. If water balance is maintained in the body, we don't know how much of water we drink. And there is one more myth where people say that daily you should drink 6 glasses of water, 8 glasses of water. Sorry, no. You are not a bull, you are not a buffalo to drink that much of gallons of water. More water you drink, you are making more working for the kidney. You should drink water only as that much is required to the body, and the body itself is going to tell you when it requires water. Water as a therapy, when it is used, let us say you have already a toxified blood, your body is already become toxic due to lot of unhealthy lifestyle or unhealthy food habits, then the doctor will tell you that you should drink, allopathic doctor will tell you that you should drink 6 to 8 glasses of water, because he knows that blood is toxified now. But an Ayurvedic doctor will say you should not drink water just like that 6 to 8 glasses. In Ayurveda, there are herbs to detoxify blood also. There are mechanisms in Ayurveda to cleanse the blood also, that I am going to tell you later on. So in that case, you should not drink water which is more than necessary, because there will be one more disease coming called hydrophobia. If you keep on drinking more and more of water, body may start developing fear about water, and that itself is called as hydrophobia. So don't drink water just like that by reading to the newspaper articles or by listening to someone else who is not following the yogic system or Ayurvedic system. Instead, based on the modern clinical researches, they will simply tell you that you should drink this much of water per day. Don't simply follow all those practices. Only when you are thirsty, you drink water. Otherwise, unnecessarily don't drink water. But you can keep sipping water. Now, for example, I keep on talking. We are in teaching profession where we have to keep on talking whole day and our throats become dry. I will have a water bottle adjacent to me always. I will keep on sipping a little bit of water just to keep my throat wet. It is not that I drink 8 glasses of water per day. Summer season, we may drink more water when we feel thirsty. Otherwise, we should not unnecessarily drink water. So remember the kidney, you drink more water, you are giving more strain. Now why this kidney stone happens? In general, in the blood, if there are materials which are undigested, I had told you earlier that undigested food is called as ama. All the food that you consume, it should be digested in the stomach and in the intestine. If it remains undigested, if it is not broken up fully, then it is coming towards the kidney, and through the kidney it is trying to go out. Now these undigested particles, if at all kidney is taking them out, they may gradually accumulate in the sponge in the kidney. They may gradually accumulate in the sponge and they may gradually crystallize. When they gradually crystallize, then they call it as kidney stone. Actually, it is not a stone. It is not a granite stone. It is the food articles which got not properly digested. They only go there, they get accumulated there in the sponge, and then they gradually cause pain. There are very good remedies which I am going to tell you later on about how kidney stones can be treated that way. That I am going to tell you later on. But the cause for kidney stone is basically lack of digestive fire. If you develop enough digestive fire, whatever you consume, you should digest it, you should burn it. In olden days, people used to take kallu tindu kallu karguskobeku. They used to say, even if you consume a stone granule, you should digest it in your stomach. That much of digestive fire we should have. There used to be a mess in Majestic area called Madappa mess. Many years before, once my friend told me, and me and my friend went there. That Madappa was sitting there. Now I don't know whether that Madappa mess exists or not. At the heart of Majestic area, it used to be there. And Madappa was sitting there in his mess, and his sons were serving food. We went there. Me and my friend, we are having very lean figure. Just for our curiosity, we went there. And Madappa in Kannada, he told, "Bani bani, kutkale, ota madi, hotte tumba ota madi, come, sit inside and eat stomach full," he said. He was our double figure. And even his sons were very stout. They brought a plate from kitchen and they started serving ragi mudde. that ragi mudde was almost double the tennis ball size. It was double the tennis ball size. And we sold, we cannot consume that much of ragi mudde. Madappa said, ye huduguru ನೀವು ಈ ವಯಸ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ತಿನ್ನಲ್ಲ. He started making comedy of us that at this age you don't eat ragi mudde, eat that. We said, make a 25% of it and give it to us. It was such a huge ragi mudde. And somehow we consumed whatever they fed. Then Madappa said, Tattel onchuru bidbardo. He said, you should not leave any residual food on the plate. And he was scolding at us. Affectionately, he was scolding at us. And then rice, they brought a big vessel of rice and they started sliding rice, not serving rice, sliding rice through one more plate to our plate. And we are telling, ayoyo saku. We were requesting, enough. And Madappa was telling, tinre, bandmel tinbeku, nam message bandmel chanag tinbeku. If you come to our mess, you should eat fully. You should be satisfied. Such a old man, such a courageous man. I appreciate his hospitality. I don't know. He was a very soulful, good gentleman. And whenever I remember Madappa mess now, I actually congratulate him for his eating ability. That much of digestive fire those people were having. And where this digestive fire went in the modern generation? Because of the excessive bakery items, excessive sweets and savories, and excessive maida products, all types of synthesized and artificial food products. Digestive fire is gone. Even in the childhood itself, they will have dysentery. Gradually understood the body's mechanism that all such healthy food we should be able to consume. Then gradually everything should be burnt, and the burnt food will become energy, and the energy will nourish our body. Now the unburnt or undigested food particles, if they remain, they come here, they become a stone, and that is when kidney pain starts. I am going to tell later about the remedies for the kidney stone. Okay, don't be in a hurry to ask all other questions immediately now. Wait till I finish the working of these two beautiful people. One is Mr. Kidney, one is Mr. Liver. 5 minutes more, let me discuss about Mr. Liver now. Or if you have any questions, let me see in the chat box. It is still there, sir, in Gandhinagar. Okay. Okay. Pratap says that Madappa mess is still there. So my audience who are right now in Bangalore, make it a point to visit Madappa mess there and have a very satisfactory and healthy meal there. Okay. My understanding, fear occurs if there is a threat for survival or pain. From previous session, I understood plants also feel fear, but it doesn't have nervous system or brain. Then what is the purpose of such fear? Okay, the purpose of such fear in plants is survival only. Fear is present there in all the living organisms. I had told you to watch that YouTube video about how amoeba swallows other microorganisms. When amoeba comes there, even other microorganisms under fear. Because only when there is a fear of existence, they will try to survive. Make an attempt to survive. When they make an attempt to survive, that is when they escape death. Otherwise, death is inevitable anywhere, everywhere, anyhow. So fear is kept in, even in microorganisms, even in macroorganisms, fear is kept so that they will have an effort for survival. So that is the basic purpose of fear, nothing else. Can you tell us more about B12 in vegetarian food? I had told you already about vitamin B. I had shown you the slides there. Don't worry much about B12. I think you joined later on to this particular meeting. In the beginning, I had told that we should not be doing too much of analysis for each and every item. We should not do too much of analysis for all our nutrients. Body is much more intelligent than ourselves. You simply become natural, start eating natural fruits and natural vegetables, organic rice items, organic vegetables, and whatever is required for the body will store it for itself. It is not necessary that we should consume 1 gram of B12, 1 gram of vitamin C, 2 grams of vitamin A, like that. Nothing like that. Let us say consume some 2 carrots, or let us say 1 bowl of carrot curry. All the carrots vitamin A may not be utilized by the body. Now body will take only that much of vitamin A which is required for itself, and body will utilize it for the health of the eyes. The remaining vitamin A, simply the body will eject it out as excretion or as urine or as sweat. Body has its own mechanisms of releasing whatever is not required, it will simply release outside. So we don't have to worry much about what all items are required. Whatever slides I have shown you till now, if you develop such healthy food habits, cooking habits, that is enough. Now the problem with the modern diagnosis is, when people go for a blood test, they will get a blood report. In that report, they will print that this is deficient, this is deficient, this is deficient. Now they will give a synthesized pill for that. Synthesized pill which will say this is there, this is there, this is there. My guru's guru, Dr. Swami Geetananda Giri, used to give a example that, let us say God produced 1 orange. You consume 1 orange as it is. Orange has got its own nutrition, it has got its own fiber, and it has got its own vitamin C. How much ever is required for the body, that much of vitamin C body will use it, remaining vitamin C will simply go. Now instead of consuming 1 orange, let us say you take 4 oranges and you make a concentrated orange juice or orange syrup. Now you consume 4 oranges juice without the fiber. Without the fiber, only the juice. What will happen? This excessive juice, will the body be able to digest? Now the body will say, I did not want this much of juice, you loaded. Now the body will retaliate, or the body will try to reject such unnecessarily loaded items. We should be wise enough to go back to nature, understand God's mind. Go back to nature, become natural, consume such healthy foods which are making common sense. Now, in spite of all these things, we have made our life complicated by going for packed juices, packed products, where it is very much concentrated. We want everything in a small form now. That is not so. We require fiber, we require carbohydrate, we require protein, we require some amount of fats and oils, we require vitamins and minerals. You simply supply natural food to your body, and body knows what to take, what to reject. Have faith on the body, have faith on the Lord who is right now indwelling in this particular body. It is not your body, it is His body. If you think that it is your body, no, you are only using that body. You did not design the body. He designed the body. He used it as his vehicles. You are a tenant in this body, that's all. He is the owner. Look at the picture of Krishna, Arjuna, 4 horses. Understand the meaning of that. Arjuna is sitting in the middle of the chariot, but Arjuna is not the owner of the chariot. Arjuna may think that he is the owner of the chariot. Krishna is the owner of the chariot. And Krishna is holding the 4 horses. Those 4 horses are 4 antakarana, manas, chitta, buddhi, ahankara. Those are the 4 horses. He is the one who is actually making them and implementing them. Arjuna is only utilizing and enjoying the chariot. Same way, it is not your body, it is his body. Don't worry too much about all these complicated analysis, and don't keep measuring each and every item. That is where I say the modern education and the modern psychology has gone away from the divine life and natural life. All the other birds and animals and other beings remain healthy because they don't worry too much about all these things. They are naturally living. Human beings went far away from nature. That is where modern human beings have lost their health. That is my suggestion for you. It's already 9 o'clock. I will discuss liver tomorrow. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.